with us. It's the second day of April, and you've tuned into Arirang News. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Hundreds of North Koreans gathered in the East Pyongyang Grand Theater on Sunday to watch South Korean pop stars perform amid the recent thawing of relations between the two Koreas after years of heightened tensions over Pyongyang's nuclear program. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made a surprise visit to the performance with his wife and his sister. He applauded the event and even shook hands with South Korean performers. And before we sit down with an expert to talk more about this, let's first head over to Devin Whiting at the News Center for the latest headlines at this hour. Hello, Devin.
Hi, Ji-yoon. Well, it was reported over the weekend that 3 South Korean nationals were among those kidnapped by pirates last month near Ghana. Where those 3 are now is unknown, but the Foreign Ministry in Seoul says that a South Korean naval destroyer is on its way to the area and will get there in about 2 weeks. Park Ji-won has the latest.
It's been around a week now since 3 South Korean nationals were abducted by pirates in the waters off the coast of Ghana on March 26. Details of the incident are not yet to be confirmed, such as any demand or request made by the hijackers or even the whereabouts of the hostages. South Korea's defense ministry said the warship Munmu the Great has been dispatched to the area, and it is expected to arrive near the coast of West Africa on April 16th. The Joint Chief of Staff said to reporters Monday afternoon that the warship is currently passing the waters off the coast of Tanzania, yet it added for security reasons it cannot publicly release any further information about the destroyer's detailed route or any possible plan of action upon arrival. The South Korean Navy's destroyer is carrying some 30 naval warfare special forces troops, as well as Lynx multi-role helicopters armed with 12.7 millimeters of machine guns. Meanwhile, Seoul's foreign ministry said the government is gathering necessary information through diverse contacts, including the U.S., Ghana, Nigerian governments, as well as neighboring countries, to secure the safe return of the Korean nationals. The Foreign Ministry said earlier on Monday that it is believed that about 9 armed pirates used a speedboat to race toward the Marine 711, a fishing boat with 3 South Korean nationals, as well as some 40 crew members from Ghana on board. In a similar case, back in 2011, South Korean Navy's Cheonghae unit successfully carried out an operation to rescue the South Korean crew of cargo vessel hijacked by Somali pirates. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
In other news, as promised, China is imposing new tariffs on 128 kinds of products from the United States in response to the Trump administration's own tariffs on China. Those products include meat, fruit, and wine. Beijing says it doesn't want a trade war but won't back down from one either. Kim Hae-sung has the details.
China has imposed new tariffs of up to 25% on U.S. imports in response to U.S. duties on imports of steel and aluminum. The Chinese Finance Ministry said in a statement Sunday that it's increasing the tariff rates on 128 kinds of U.S. products, including pork and fruits, with the new rates coming into effect on Monday. Beijing said the move was to safeguard China's interests and balance losses caused by new U.S. tariffs. It's expected to have an impact of around $3 billion. Tariff rates on 8 imported U.S. products, including pork and U.S. scrap aluminum, will be subject to a 25% additional tariff on top of existing duties. China is also imposing a new 15% tariff on 120 imported U.S. commodities, including fruits and nuts. The announcement comes after Beijing has made warnings for several weeks in an escalating trade dispute with the United States.
We have said many times that China does not want to fight a trade war. But we have also said if we are forced to enter into a trade war, China has the stamina and the confidence to protect its interests.
The tariffs mirror Washington's 25% charge on imported steel and 15% hike on aluminum announced in March. According to the U.S.-China Business Council, U.S. goods exported to China in 2016 totaled around $113 billion, making China the United States' 3rd largest export market. U.S. President Donald Trump has said Washington is planning to impose duties on about $50 billion of Chinese goods intended to punish Beijing for U.S. allegations that China systematically misappropriated American intellectual property. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer has until April 6th to release the tariff list. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
And staying on the trade front, President Trump has linked his proposal for a wall between the U.S. and Mexico to the ongoing negotiations on NAFTA. He also renewed his call for an end to the flow of drugs and illegal immigrants into the country. Lee Seung-jae reports.
In a flurry of tweets on Sunday, President Trump threatened to pull the DACA deal off the table and demanded Mexico's help stopping illegal border crossers, or else he'd nix NAFTA. He added the southern neighbor is doing very little, if nothing, to stop illegal immigrants and drugs flowing across the border, as the U.S. leader repeated a threat he made earlier this year, warning a successful NAFTA renegotiation may hinge on Mexico making efforts to secure its side of the border. Last week, Trump made comparisons between the demilitarized zone and the Mexican border, saying that despite not getting paid much to help protect the DMZ that separates the Koreas, nobody comes through. He added the DMZ is protected by 32,000 soldiers, defense equipment, and barbed wire, but little is done to protect America's own border. In addition, referring to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, Trump said there would be no deal to legalize the status of millions of undocumented immigrants who were brought into the U.S. as children, adding that the U.S. border with Mexico was getting more dangerous. DACA, created by former President Barack Obama, was ended by Trump last year, but he gave Congress 6 months to pass legislation enshrining it. A deal has so far proved elusive, as Trump continues to blame the Democrats for not being able to fulfill his 2016 presidential campaign promise. The president said Border Patrol agents can't do their jobs properly because of, quote, ridiculous liberal laws that allow people caught for being in the country illegally to be released while they await a hearing before a federal immigration judge. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Korean tire manufacturer Kumho Tire has avoided being put under court receivership after its labor union backed a plan to sell the firm to Chinese truck and bus tire maker Doublestar. Under the plan, the Chinese company has vowed to invest some $600 million into Kumho Tire. Kim Jong-un tells us more.
Cash-strapped Kumho Tire has avoided bankruptcy as its labor union on Sunday voted in favor of selling the company to its Chinese rival Doublestar. 60% of its union okayed the sale plan, under which the Chinese tire maker buys a 45% stake in Kumho Tire for approximately $600 million through a third-party capital increase. Doublestar has also vowed to secure jobs for Kumho's 5,000 employees for 3 years after acquisition. To get the company back on track, Kumho's union members also agreed on a wage freeze until 2019 and returning parts of their work benefits. After Kumho's creditors signed a memorandum of understanding with the tire manufacturer on Monday, they will proceed to signing a sales contract with Doublestar before the end of June, according to its main creditor, the Korea Development Bank. Apart from the sales deal, Kumho's creditors will also inject around $190 million in additional funds to cover the firm's debts of over $2.2 billion. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his wife were among the guests on Sunday at the first of 2 special concerts in Pyongyang by South Korean artists. It seems he enjoyed it so much to the point that he suggested holding another concert in autumn. Our Oh Jung-hee has more.
For the first time in 13 years, Sunday night, a group of South Korean musicians put on a concert in Pyongyang, dazzling an audience that included North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Kim was accompanied by a few well-known faces: his wife Lee Seol-ju, his sister Kim Yo-jung, who visited South Korea in February for the Winter Olympics, and Hyun Song-wol, who led the North Korean delegation in talks to set up the show. It started at around 6:20 p.m. North Korea time, that's 6:50 p.m. in the South, and lasted for over 2 hours. It was called Spring is Coming and featured 11 South Korean artists, including Cho Yong-pil, Lee Sun-hee, the idol group Red Velvet, and Seohyun of Girls' Generation.
I hope this concert gives us a chance to truly feel that we are one.
The South Koreans sang to a full house, 1,500 seats, songs representing the fact of the two Koreas' division. They ended with two numbers called Our Hope is Reunification and Until We Meet Again.
When we South Korean artists all sang together, the North Koreans sang along with us. That made me feel that we are one people. It was touching, and that's why I teared up.
As he watched, Kim Jong-un reportedly said there should be more cultural and art performances put on by Seoul and Pyongyang. He also suggested holding another concert in the autumn, this time in Seoul, which would signify that the two Koreas are seeing fruitful results from their diplomatic push. Kim's attendance was a surprise to many, but there were clues that it might happen as the start time was changed twice on the day of the concert. His original plan reportedly was to attend on Tuesday, a joint performance by both South and North Korean artists, but he had schedule conflicts. But his sudden appearance, which naturally came with strict security, prevented most of the South Korean journalists from covering the concert. Kim entered the concert hall when the South Korean press were outside, and without notifying the reporters, the performance began right away. Only one cameraman stayed inside throughout the performance, while the rest had to watch it on a television in a nearby room. Afterwards, the North Korean side apologized, explaining that their exclusion wasn't intentional, but the result of a lack of communication. The South Korean artists will hold a joint performance with their North Korean counterparts on Tuesday afternoon before returning to Seoul. 오정희, Arirang News.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Ju Jae-woo from Kyung University joins us in the studio today. Hello, Professor.
Hello.
All right, so South Koreans performed over in North Korea at the weekend for the first time in 13 years. So what does this performance actually mean for inter-Korean relations?
Yes, I don't know if we can really render, the civilian diplomacy, the meaning of state diplomacy, but it is the first defining moment in 13 years. So I think in that respect, definitely it is meaningful. But the impact it's going to have on inter-Korean relationship, I'm a little skeptical here because civilian diplomacy cannot be really render so much political meanings or political implications to the state relationship. So if this civilian diplomacy is going to have some kind of political implications or meanings, then it should be a continuing process. There has to be continuity of the civilian diplomacy, which means there should be a reciprocal process of all these cultural exchanges and activities going on between the two countries. Then we can say, okay, there's some meaningful moments here.
And going along with that, Kim Jong-un reportedly said that the two Koreas should hold more cultural and arts performances together, and even saying that the two Koreas should hold a similar event come May in Seoul.
Yes. Looks like it that way. It was a surprising announcement, and obviously he said he would like to have his delegations to go to Seoul and perform in the autumn. I think that's a good, one good signature here, but at the same time, autumn is still far away, and there's going to be a lot of political events happening between two Koreas as well as including the United States.
So could we actually just think, though, that there could be some political implications to this?
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Well, we know that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un actually attended Sunday's performance to many surprise with his wife, Ri Seol-ju, and his sister, Kim Yo-jong. So what can we make of his appearance there?
I think his message was definitely showing respect to his South Korean counterpart, which will be President Moon Jae-in, because it was at his offering that the concert was held, and gladly to President Moon Jae-in, Kim Jong-un accepted the offer, and I guess in return he had to show his political respect to President Moon.
Now, the head of the Blue House Department for Monitoring State Affairs, Yoon Gon-young, who was actually one of the members of the special delegation to North Korea back in March, was also in North Korea for this event. So what can we make of his presence there?
I don't know if we can make something out of his presence, because there's something strange about this head of the delegation from the Blue House, because for this concert alone, that the Blue House sent three different delegations three different representatives,
Okay.
and they're all three different personnel. Yeah, so there's not certainly a continuity there, but at the same time, as we saw in the footage, there was a Minister of Culture and Sports who was attending and sitting right next to Kim Jong-un. That's right. So I don't know if a representative from the Blue House is meaningful while there's a minister from South Korean government attending the event simultaneously.
Now we have that another event coming up on Tuesday.
Yes.
Do you think perhaps Kim Jong-un could be attending that as well?
It looks like he's a big fan of K-pops, so and he's pretty young. So maybe he might show up again, and to show much more respect to not only the artists, but also to the government of South Korea.
All right. Well, Kim Jong-un, meanwhile, also met with Olympics chief Thomas Bach in Pyongyang last week and said that North Korea is committed to participating in 2020 and 2022 Olympic Games.
Yes, that's right. I think Mr. Bach is on a tour right now and visiting all these countries, to get a confirmation of their participation in the upcoming Olympic events. And it's good that he didn't exclude North Korea. And he stepped on the early board. He made an early board, and he personally got engaged with Kim Jong-un. So I think that's a good beginning. That's a good beginning, because for the IOC also, when they want North Korea to participate in all these Olympic events, they have to find ways to avoid any kind of violations of United Nations sanctions on North Korea. So that, I think for that political reasons, that he made an early visit to North Korea and had a good meeting with Kim Jong-un.
What do you think North Korea's intentions could be in wanting to participate in the Olympic Games from here on out?
Oh, well, just to make their presence known to the world and to improve their national image, that's for sure. By engaging with other athletes and other countries and IOC members, that they're accommodating the spirit of the Olympics. I think that could be a great projection of improving their national image.
And of course, the big question now is whether this will all lead to the ultimate denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And we have that working level talks between the two Koreas coming up on this Wednesday. So what can we expect from that meeting?
Yes, I think we can go back to the mid-90s and when there's a Geneva Agreement in 1994 and in September of 2005 agreements among the 6 prior nations. If we recall a little bit of the foreign or external environment of North Korea, that's when they felt most comfortable with not only the neighboring states, but also with the other international organizations. And their foreign predicament made them compelled to feel that, oh, we are engaged and we are welcome by the world. And when that kind of situation is created, then North Korea feels much more comfortable in accommodating demands and negotiating with outsiders. So I think all these developments could play a positive role to the path of denuclearization.
Now, we're also wondering, though, whether this issue of denuclearization will be put on the agenda in all of these meetings.
Hope so. Not the first working level meeting, but the second meeting of the working level has to deal with a specific issue, because that's when they're going to talk about and discuss the joint communique or joint statement between the two countries. And in that joint statement, there has to be some kind of announcement or statement regarding the denuclearization process between the two Koreas, or anything that is susceptible to the groundbreaking statement regarding the denuclearization of North Korea. Yes.
All right. Well, we also have that high-level inter-Korean meeting coming up on April 18th. Are there anything that we can expect from this meeting?
Maybe some of the political issues that. According to some media reports, our government is looking forward to institutionalizing the Inter-Korean Summit, as well as for expanding their political and other non-political contexts too. So that could be one of the agendas at the meeting. while the very first meeting on April 4th will be talking about, the protocols and, how they're going to accommodate and, each other's media and other delegations. So that's about protocols, but the second meeting will really focus on the agenda that the two leaders are going to really touch upon.
So now we see the difference between how we view denuclearization from other countries, because North Korea is kind of saying step-by-step denuclearization, which we have seen it done before, and it kind of failed. And then the U.S. is saying you need to denuclearize it at once, you know? So it's kind of different from North Korea's perspective. So what does the Moon administration thinking in regards to denuclearization process?
I think the Moon government is leaning towards North Korea and China's, scheme of denuclearization, which will be step-by-step, incremental denuclearization process. But here, American scheme is not that much different. Total denuclearization, but the inherited nature of American model, the so-called Libyan model, is the total embodiment of the incremental process. Because while you're offering returns in return to the actions that North Korea has taken for denuclearization, then the step has to be incremental and gradual, because the United States, while it's offering goodies to North Korea, at the same time they want a confirmation, they want to verify it, and they want to see it really dismantled. So, all these process, the inherited process is pretty much the same of the two parties that they're talking about.
Now, there have been talks over how the April 27th Inter-Korea Summit could perhaps lead to an Inter-Korea Summit on a regular basis. You mentioned it a little bit before.
Yes, that's right.
But what are the chances of actually seeing that happen?
In this day and age of globalization and information technology, and considering the geographical factors here, how close we are, I don't know if institutionalization of Inter-Korean Summit is really meaningful, because I think it's out of date concept. I think it doesn't need to be politicized in such fashion, because in this day and age, we can travel freely and within a short span of time. The technology, transportation technology has improved so much compared to the 70s and 80s, when it was much more difficult to travel. So that's why it was meaningful back then to hold annual summit among the country leaders. But nowadays, you look at Abe of Japan. He goes to the States at his own discretion. And Trump is American president while he's pretty much occupied by domestic issues, but he can travel pretty much freely at his own will.
But then it's a different case for North Korea, obviously.
Yes, that's right. So here, we don't want to specialize North Korea. We don't want to give too much special meanings to North Korea or even to China, because in our bilateral relationship with China, we also want to institutionalize our China-South Korea summit. But here, we see these leaders, Chinese leaders, in so many occasions, so many different occasions throughout the year, within the context of multilateral meetings, within the context of bilateral meetings, or we can apply the same formula to North Korean leader if he's willing to come forward to all these international gatherings and meetings, then it'll be meaningless.
Well, what about that hotline, though, that the two Koreas were supposed to kind of resume?
Yes, that's right. I think that's very, very important for the stability and peace of North Korea, of the Korean Peninsula, because without having sufficient means of communication between the two capitals, and while we have limited access to information in the two capitals, there's always a great chance for misunderstanding and miscommunication. So in order to prevent that, to begin with, I think hotline communication lines. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our show, but stay tuned to Arirang for more news updates throughout the day. As always, thank you for watching and goodbye.